Hey there, everybody. Robert Taylor with Wonderscape Creations, continuing on with our AOE spell set. Well, spell action. So all we have left now is to get the rain effect to do its thing. So 2 episodes ago, we set up the spawn spell, and now we're going to go ahead and actually do the spell initialization and get everything going. So go ahead and open up your spell. If you are in the Magic AOE and you're right here, you can just double click it and bring you to it. This is all you should have right now. If you just have this, then you already know how to make this. Just pull out, promote to variable, and then highlight them all, create function. Yeah. But before we do any of this stuff, we need to come up here, because we need to set some stuff up. We need to do some things that have to be done because we are firing the projectile without using the shooting component. It's very easy to set up, but it's very hard to know exactly what you're missing. So I've gone ahead and have that showing up here because Yaren was struggling with helping me find out why there was an issue. My own AI was struggling with helping me find the issue. But with Pask's help, we were able to find the one function I was missing, because I had everything else correct. So we need to create a function called setUpInstigator, and we need to put it in between event begin play and parent begin play. We want to make sure all this is set up correctly. Let's go ahead and open it up. Now the first thing we need to do, and this is the node that I missed, right click, set up projectile. Right there. Place that in there, and then get instigator and plug that into owner. Now again, get instigator, get the collision component. From the collision component, set actor owner. There we go. And then the next thing to do, the collision component, drag out of there for the target. Set up collision manager and mesh component, which the projectile has a mesh component. Go ahead and plug that in there. And then finally, I have this collision component, add collision channel, and I'm adding in world static. Now I'm doing this that way when the effect hits the ground, it will do damage. I mean, it can do damage, but it will put up the visual effect. The collision component needs to know that this channel is something that it needs to be tracking. Now, for optimization, we may want to remove we have add collision channel. Well, we can clear them all completely. That's not what we want, though. I may be making a function for that down the road. But anyways, for now, this is acceptable and it's fine. Compile and save. Now, once we're done with that, we can come back down here where we initialize the projectile and set up the variables. We now need to set up the visuals. So let's go ahead and open this up, create the function setup visuals. This one is very different. This is an either or situation. We don't want or need both. And if you're wanting it to be able to have both and you're wanting to do an array, you'll need to expand that yourself. Logically, for me, that just doesn't make sense. That makes things immensely more expensive. But anyways, projectile data, break it. And we need the particle system and Niagara system. Obviously, we're checking to see if it's valid. If it is, we're going to set the template for the particle system, which is right here. and then for the Niagara one, we're going to check for it. And then we're going to set it into the Niagara, which does not have it by default. So go ahead and add a component for Niagara. And we're good to go there. And then is not valid, we're just going to return. So this is how this works. The next things we need to do, now that it's on my mind, I don't want to forget it. Go ahead and select up here on the BP spell projectile, you know, the self, and search for activate. As you can see, I don't have them auto activated here, but they work, which means I activate them somewhere else. It's fine. If you run into an issue and they're not working, check mark auto activate, just so that you have it done. All right. Once we've set up the visuals, we now need to set up the collision component. So go ahead and create this function, and we're going to open it up. There's going to be a lot of things that are very similar, but there's some differences. So get instigator, cast the ACF character, get combat team, ACF team manager subsystem, get hostile collision channels to add collision channel from the collision component. Now the next thing are the damage traces, because we are using, if I come over here to the collision component here, we are using damage traces, this array right here. This is important, so we need to set this up. So I've gone ahead and done just that. Projectile data, break to find the damage traces. We want to make sure that it's not empty first. I mean, if it's empty, no traces will be printed so that the developer knows that the traces weren't set up. If it's not empty, then we'll do an array. We'll break out of the first one to set up this information. We'll need the name, because we have two. We'll get the collision component. We need to do set trace config and set and start single trace. So the moment that the spell is activated, this trace is turned on. That way, if it hits something in the air that it can damage, it'll damage it, things like that. And you'll want to make sure that you pull out the trace info and find make trace info. All we need is the radius, the trail length, the attack sound, and the damage class. None of this other stuff really matters. Start socket, the start socket and end socket might matter if you choose to use your own mesh. So let's go ahead and real quick come over here. As you can see, there's a socket manager. He has an end and start for this static mesh. And that is how he sets all of that up. So if you're going to have your own static mesh, obviously it is invisible. If you see it in your spells, just come here in the mesh component, visibility, turn for rendering visible, turn that off. That way you're not also seeing that mesh. As you can see right now, we can't see it. Visible, now you can see it. So, yeah, file and save. Impact damage, where were we? Setting up collision. Base damage I lifted 0 because all of it is determined through the damage type class. That way it connects with the gameplay ability system and we're good to go. Now, once we have that done and you have that set up, we now need to set up some collision detection and on actor damage detection. Because we want some cool visuals, and the possibility of applying damage effects. So go ahead and right click on the collision component, add event, and the first event we're going to go for is on collision detected. So for the first one, the first function is called ground impact FX. Make sure it has an input for hit results, and make sure that it's plugged in, obviously. Then we're going to pull out of the hit to get the results. We will store the impact point as a local variable because we don't need it all the time, just for this instance. And then we're going to pull out of hit component to get collision object type. We're going to make sure it's world static. The reason we're doing this, and I know you guys have seen it in some games, when something from the rain of fire or a bolt hits somebody, then the impact effect is the ground impact effect. So you have this floating decal that is, it just doesn't look right. So this way we are setting this up correctly. Now down the road, I do intend on making instead of a general impact effects, I'll also have a target impact effect. So that way when it collides, it just does a small explosion. I showed you how to do it. I'm showing you how to do it with the ground effect so that you don't have to, so that you know what to do. I didn't want to duplicate work in my videos. Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to create a function. Now, there is one technically that ACF has. I tried using it and it didn't work. This is essentially that, just made in Blueprint, and it does work, as you saw. So we need to create another function called check and spawn effects. And for the inputs, we want a vector, a sound base, Niagara system, and particle system. Now, the reason why I'm plugging all these three here is because it's a little bit of a mess within this function. If we open it up, you can see got a lot of lines going everywhere. But be not worried, because I can actually pull out of here, location. There we go. I did this intentionally to teach you guys a little bit. Emitter template. So if you're going to have a whole bunch of strings and it doesn't need to be in the events, and it doesn't need to stay within that same function, it's very easy to just do this. And I figured you guys are smart enough to be able to, let's change that. Niagara template. There we go. See, looks much cleaner, doesn't it? So once you have this done, if you still need more time, please feel free to pause the video. Once you have it done, we can continue on. So go ahead and close this effects, this function rather. Make sure you have that plugged into the true. Now, obviously, this same one will work. The same function will work when we're doing a different impact. So instead of general, doing target, or character impact, whatever you want it to be, special impacts, the options are endless. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of those options, because you can also come right here and do switch. That way you can have it set however you want. You don't even have to have branches. And I can even show you that if I come right here, remove that, world static, plug that in here, just like that. This will still work. And I'll show that off in the at the end. So once we're good there, we close this one up. And now we need to determine impact damage. Now, obviously, you won't. You may not always want impact damage. So we have here the hit result. Again, we made another function where the input is a hit result. And here we go. First, again, we store the local impact point. We make a local variable for that. And then projectile data. We get the damage traces. From the damage traces, we get the impact damage. And we determine, can there be damage for this specific damage type? True. Then we are going to get the collision component, perform area damage single, local impact point from what we just stored there, plug in the radius, and the damage type override. This way we're not having to set the damage type in 3 or 4 different locations within the data asset that we'll look at in a bit. Now, last but not least, what if we want to have status effects applied? Well, thankfully, with every time the player takes damage, this gets procced every time. So if they get hit directly with the firebolt, and then it explodes and they get hit by the explosion, this will proc twice to try to apply effects. So go ahead and create that function and put the actor for the input pin. I just kept it named as input pin. We'll open it up. And the first thing we want to check is chance to apply status effect. So we get the projectile data and we see, can we apply an effect? If we didn't want that, false. Ignore it. If we did, then it's true. So we're going to go ahead and get the ACF status effect component, get the local stats component. Well, not get, we're going to set a local stats component, a local variable. That way we have it. The next thing that we're going to do is get the projectile data again. We want to make sure we grab the status effects here. We're going to check if it's empty. If it is empty, true, no effects to apply, return, we're done. False, meaning it's not empty, we're going to do a for each loop. In the last episode, I showed you how to get around this if you're not in 5.6, because I don't think this is in 5.5. And anyways, we will then go ahead and pull out of the map value random bool with weight, plug it into a branch, and then we will get the local stats component, create and apply a status effect, and we'll plug the map key into the status effect and get instigator into the instigator. Now then, for now, something you all need to be aware of is if you intend on having the chance to proc, be dynamic, you're going to need to make sure that you have that set up somewhere so that it is indeed dynamic. In the status component system that I plan on making, I do intend on having that in there to where you have a base proc chance, and then it is influenced by whatever variables that you choose and by how much. All things that I've considered. That way, it works fluidly with the game playability system, and for those who use the Sync Combat framework, it also will work with them. But for now, having it be static is just fine. it is not an issue. So compile and save. And we make sure that that is plugged in the on actor damaged. And that is everything, ladies and gentlemen. So now if we come back to our ability where we had ground effect, I'm going to just change it to rain effect. I'm going to reduce the area because we don't need to go over that now. And as you can see here, our spell projectile is the one that we made at the beginning. Spawn height we have set at 800. You can set it as low or as high as you want. Just remember that the projectile lifespan needs to be appropriate. Because if you're going to have it starting at 3000, then it's going to disappear before it even hits the ground. So plan accordingly. Then the spawn rate curve, what we made in the first episode, go ahead and place that here. Projectile speed, so how quickly does it fall? I have it falling at 500. You can have it as fast or as slow as you want. Again, just remember, projectile lifespan is important. If you're going to have it dropping super slow, you may need to have a longer projectile lifespan. If it's super fast, you can definitely have a shorter one. The next thing, unique projectile data. We open this up. We have here the damage trace array, particle system, Niagara system, chance to apply status effect for this particular bolt is true. And the status effect that it can apply, because we don't have a burn, we are doing poison, and it's a 25% chance. And then the effects upon colliding is set right here. So sound, Niagara, cascade. Now then, for the traces, this way, if the bolt, the visual effects that you have for your bolt is unique and it's doing fire and lightning, you can have a fire trace and a lightning trace. That way you don't have to, that way everything is working as it should with calculations. So if you have an attribute that only improves lightning damage, it will just increase the damage from the lightning, not both lightning and fire, because you have to have a damage type of ACF fire lightning damage type. This removes that need. Anyways, we went over this before, and then here's the impact damage. Has impact damage, true, then it's going to use this damage type in that, which is why I have this attached the way that it is. And just like that, everything should work, assuming that the change that I made live without testing continues to work. So let's find out. Yep, there's our explosions. Perfect. They're taking damage. They're taking an immense amount of damage. Yeah. Look at that. Dead, son. They're all dead. Now, obviously, that did not take near enough mana. That's a very, very powerful spell. So obviously, you would either reduce the damage by reducing the player stats or increasing, this stuff, or you can make it very expensive. So if we go into action config, action cost, it's going to cost mana. We'll say 80 mana. See, for me, that's still not enough mana, especially with how quickly mana comes back. But the mana region is something that you would choose for yourself. But yeah, just things for you to play with. Make sure that you have. And we'll go ahead and have some fun here real quick, just so I can show you. If we make this 1500 for the speed, that means we'll make the lifespan of the bolts 2 seconds. This will be great. It's rapidly falling. There you go. And just like that, it's more optimized because the bolts are only lasting 2 seconds instead of 5. So that is it. This now helps you guys further understand the ingenious setup that we have here with Ascent Combat Framework Ultimate, and just Ascent Combat Framework, where we have these data assets. Because now um, I don't have to create a second spell that does mostly the same thing, but something different. I can just come in here and make the changes that I want. Come here to ground effect, hit save, play. This. And they're taking an immense amount of damage. And we decide that we want the frequency to change. How long has it been? 25 minutes. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. Those who want to have some additional flexibility, please feel free to make sure that you stay, because we're going to set it up to where we can just keep the curve how it is, but influence it outside of the curve. That way, that variable can be changed without you having to swap out curves, if that makes any sense. So for those who aren't interested, thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you in the next episode when we go over one of the new spells that we'll be making. For those of you who are interested on continuing to make things a little more dynamic, let's go ahead and get to it. So we will need to open up the magic AOE action, and we will need the actor as well. So we need to, oh no, we don't need to be in there. Right here. This right here. So what we need is to influence the time. We don't need to influence this per se. Actually, we do. Never mind. All of this needs to be influenced. So we're going to come right here, and we're going to make it a plus sign. No. Let me pause this real quick while I think about how we're going to go about this. Okay. So the smart thing to do is to wait until you have a gameplay attribute that you can use to power this. What I mean by that is if we have the person here, I believe. Yeah, we have the character owner. So if I come, let me see what they do here for instance. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter. So if we come over here, get instigator, and get component by class, and we get the ACF ability component. Get float attribute from ability system component. At which point we can choose the attribute. Obviously, ACF does not have that, but as you can see, we have this right here. So what you would want to do is we would want to create our own variable from this. And how you do it is completely and totally up to you. And here's why. If you decide that you want every type of elemental bolt to spawn differently based off of its own attribute, then in reality, you would want this attribute point right here to be a part of this right here. You would want it part of the damage trace. If you're wanting it based off of whichever damage type is happening. If you're wanting it based off of, well, actually, no. If you're wanting it based off the bolt, you need it in here. Sorry, I was thinking AOE for a moment. You're gonna want to add it into this struct that we made in the first episode. So I'll go ahead and do that now. So we come up here into structs. It is the projectile data. Now, if we come in here and we hit add, and we call it influencing attribute. We come in here, and I want to make sure I get it correct here. Gameplay attribute structure. Gameplay attribute. Interesting. Attribute. Do they have structure? No. So it's just attribute. All right. So we have this attribute right here. This should work. We hit save. Then we come back in here. Influencing attribute. It does not. Let me see if I can find it, because I know it's there somewhere. All right, so I just had a typo issue. There is gameplay attribute. So change that to gameplay attribute, and you come over here and plug that in, because now we can have this influence it. And depending on your game, will depend on whether you want it to multiply or add to it. So let's go ahead and, just so that I can show it working, because I don't have the attribute yet, I'm going to, oh yeah, we're not gonna, we go add, and we'll get a multiply. Now, no matter what, it'll be, we'll be playing with both of these. Oh, of course, we can only do it one at a time. That's fine. So we'll do it first with the add. Now, because we're doing this, right now I have it set to where it's insanely fast right off the dot. So let's go into the curves. We're going to change this up. These we will put at 0.8. And then these we will, they should be at the right, the same. You're not. Where are you at? 0.1. So you need to be at 0.1 as well. Now we come over here and we make this 0.4, just like that. So it's immensely slow right now. If I hit play, I go ahead and do this. As you can see, it's still amazing. It's just not going nearly as fast. You're not getting nearly as many. Definitely not a big deal. There we go. Now, if we come in here to this, and we add, now, this is important. Let's go ahead and actually do this, because this is going to come out as a positive value. So if you add, you need to remember that. So you'll need to multiply it by -1 to make it a negative number. And let's just say we're going to do it by 0.25. That's where your attribute is currently at with how it's influencing. Now if we hit 8 and do it, as you can see, we're starting to get many, many more. It's going a lot faster. We got a lot more bolts. So you can see the benefit of doing it this way. Took a little bit longer, but I think I know why. Nope, no clue why, except maybe the time elapsed is off. Let's find out. Compile and save. But as you can see, it's all about a balancing act. It's about playing with it, finding what works best, because you want the last bolt to be dropping before the area of effect ends, at least in most cases. So let's see how this works. Yeah, see, that didn't work. As you can see, the bolts stopped far sooner. So we want this like this. This may mean that we need to mess with a couple of other settings down the road, but you get what I'm saying here. So we hit A, as we want this to still last 20 seconds, right? And we know that the circle, the AOE below, is lasting 20 seconds. Because we have that hard set to end at 20. And you'll see that it does, but we still are projecting a few bolts, which means the timing has been altered. And that's something that you'll have to figure out. Now, the other place that you can put this, if you aren't wanting it per a bolt, no, this is for all of them. So 100% at random, whichever one is chosen, that's the influencing attribute. If you're wanting it to be the same for all of the bolts, then you would need to come in here and create that variable to have it sent in right here. That's it. Because then it's in one location. They all share the same thing, and you don't have to worry about the randomized version right here. So it's just in here is where you would put the attribute influence right here instead of having it in here. Then it will affect all of the bolts evenly if you're only going to have one attribute that affects the spawn speed of all bolts that get spawned within this effect. But if you want it to be different for each of them with different attributes, then having it right there would be the ideal location. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next episode.